Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first event of our 2013 winter-spring season. I'd like to say, may you all live long enough to have your daughter write your comments in 14 pica double-spaced, and with a note that says, keep it snappy. Your support of the National Writers Series is very much appreciated, especially in this lovely weather tonight. At the National Writers Series, we strive to keep our ticket prices low to make it affordable for everyone. However, as a 501c3 tax-deductible organization, we rely in part on the generosity of your donations, which support our mission to promote students' writing excellence and connect communities with national writers to further the appreciation of the written word. On the back of your program tonight, and if you didn't see it already, as soon as there's some light, take a peek. You will find information about how to become a donor. Several of our FSW Front Street Writers students are in attendance tonight as volunteers, and they'll be on hand if you'd like to make a donation this evening or simply want to talk to them about their experiences as Front Street Writers. They are easily recognizable by their FSW name tags. And if you haven't already, sometime wander down the street about a half a block and take a look at the Front Street Writers headquarters. It's really extraordinary. All right, she says there's a little break here. I want to give you a special note. The clip number 2 tonight that is going to be shown has some sexual content, and I don't euphemistically say, I don't know if that's enough or too much, or not enough or too much. But we do note that there's some adult content, and this is a very complex, extremely exciting TV show. If you haven't had it, you're in for the best introduction you could have to it tonight. But if you don't want to watch clip number 2, Lobby has a bunch of morsels left, okay? Now, one of the most recognizable faces around Traverse City and on the NWS stage is Doug Stanton. Doug is the co-founder of the National Writers Series and the New York Times best-selling author of In Harm's Way and Horse Soldiers. His writing has appeared in Esquire, the New York Times, Time, Washington Post, and countless other national publications. His book, Horse Soldiers, spent 3 months on the New York Times bestseller list and is currently in development for a movie by Jerry Bruckheimer Films. Doug has appeared multiple times on the Today Show, Morning Joe, and other major television and radio outlets. When you can't see him on the Today Show, you can catch him at the Brew drinking a double shot in the dark. Chip Johannessen, our guest, our really special guest tonight, is a Detroit native. Who would have thought, right? And a Harvard grad. While at Harvard, he wrote for the Harvard Lampoon and then received a JD, a Juris Doctor, or a lawyer's law degree, at the UCLA School of Law, before beginning his television writing career with an episode of Married with Children in 1991. From there, he worked on scores of television shows, including Beverly Hills 90210, The X-Files, 24, and Dexter. He now is serving as an executive producer, and writer for Showtime's hit television series, Homeland. In September 2012, Homeland made television history when it did something no other show has done in 25 years. It won 4 out of 5 of the major drama awards at the Emmys: Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Writing, and Best Series. Modern television is now home to some of the best, most engrossing storytelling happening in American culture. Audiences loved last year's evening at NWS with Breaking Bad creator Vince Gilligan, and before that, with the Mad Men writers and producers Janet Leahy and Lisa Albert. This exclusive evening with Chip Johannessen is a one-of-a-kind event. We've tried to make this a signature event for the opening of our new season, and it is much anticipated by us, and I hope by you. We're fortunate enough to be able to welcome one of the creative forces, Chip Johannessen, a truly remarkable storyteller behind the television show that is being hailed by critics as the best thing on TV, period. Please join me in welcoming to the City Opera House stage Doug Stanton and Chip Johannessen.
Hey, thanks for coming. Are we on? The clip number 2 has some sexual content, but no nudity, whatever that calculates out to. So,
are you trying to answer Grant's question? Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Thank you for being here. It's a real thrill. We were listening to the introduction backstage, and I mean, you and the staff and the show have really, been lauded as you've won some major awards in the last couple of months. How does it make you feel? I mean, at this point in your life, let's talk about the road that brings you here to this moment on this stage.
Well, I mean, I think first the road for all of us there has been pretty long. We're a very unusual staff in that it's small, there are 5 of us, and we've all run shows before. So Alex Gonza and Howard Gordon created the pilot. Alex Gonza is part of the 5-man staff. Howard's a little more in and out, but all of us have had our own shows that we've run. Meredith Steam did Cold Case, she created that and ran it. Henry Bermel has done Rubicon and Brotherhood. I ran Dexter and Millennium.
Was Rubicon the show on AMC?
Yeah, it was on AMC.
Yeah.
That was also kind of a spy thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex Carey came to us after running Lie to Me, so it was a very strange sort of top-heavy staff, they would say. But it's just been a pleasure.
Well, let's tell the audience what we're going to do tonight, because as Grant said, it's very unique and special. And I'd like to begin that by having you set up and telling who in the audience has seen Homeland. Clap if you have.
Oh, so that.
All right.
That'll help.
This is a stranger question. If you haven't seen it, clap. Okay.
That's less, yeah.
So that's the gauge. So this is our audience. Tell us a little bit about who these characters are and what the show is about.
Well, first of all, it's based on an Israeli format, but just very, very loosely based. The Israeli thing was called Prisoner of War, Hatufim, and in which some prisoners of war came back to Israel. There were 2 of them. And it was basically a soap opera about them reintegrating with their families. It was also kind of in the wake of the Shalit thing where he had captivated that nation. He'd been taken prisoner and he was finally exchanged for 1,000 Palestinians of various stripes. Mm-hmm. This is a kind of American thriller version of that, where in the pilot we find out that there's a raid on an Osama bin Laden type compound. In the basement of that compound we discover an American prisoner of war who is Nicholas Brody. He turns out to be, he's got a beard down to here and hair like this. And he's returned a hero to the United States. That's our main lead. On the male side, the main female lead is played by Claire Danes, and she has this unpopular theory that he's actually the tip of the spear of an attack on the United States, that this whole thing was a setup, and that he therefore is a terrorist. So on top of that, she's bipolar, which you know if you've seen this. So we're not quite sure if her take on things can be trusted. Mm-hmm. And she likes jazz.
Mm-hmm. You know, we've been talking two character traits that really weren't initially in her makeup, right? They came.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Well, it's strange. Like if you watch the show, you know that these are 2 like basic things you know about this character, that they must have always been this way. She's bipolar because she's got to be an unreliable narrator. So you have a kind of unreliable thing on both sides. This Brody guy, we don't know if he's a terrorist or not, and this person, we don't quite know if what she's saying makes any sense or not, or if she's just crazy. And that she likes jazz. So
But where'd the jazz thing come from?
Well, the bipolar thing, first of all, was not in the original version of the script that Alex and Howard wrote. It was originally developed for Fox, or it was actually originally developed on spec, which it means you just sort of write it and see if somebody will bite. And It was after 24 had crashed and or had stopped, and a few of us had come off that.
You worked on 24.
Yeah, I was there at the very beginning and then kind of cleaning up at the very end of that. But the original version was done with broadcast networks in mind, and it did not have, she was not bipolar, she was just very good at her job and a little annoying to people, I think. Mm-hmm. So she became bipolar when David Nevins at Showtime said he would actually go ahead with the project because Fox passed on it and FX passed on it and it looked like it was never going to happen. I think that's the exact same trajectory The Sopranos took, by the way. Mm-hmm. And although it ended up at HBO. And David Nevins was very interested in it. He had a long relationship with Howard from 24, because Imagine Entertainment had been the mini studio on that. And he just thought that there should be a more edgy character, and he didn't mean that just because it was going to be on cable. He meant it because he really thought that this person who undertakes our defense for us on our behalf, who's part of this national security apparatus, that there's a cost to these people, that they sort of like are wounded by it in some way, and he really wanted that to be part of her. So it became this bipolar thing, but it started from that thought. Mm-hmm. The other thing, as to the jazz, that was a total accident, although it fits, it just seems like it's part of her character. We were location scouting for the bar scene in the pilot, and the location manager thought, if you've seen the show, you know there's this thing with the tapping, you know, the tapping that he does.
Does everyone know that at the beginning?
In the pilot. Yeah. That was originally not going to be clarified to her via the jazz player on the bass. It was it's some people doing deaf signaling. So the location manager saw in that jazz bar, saw the people playing and thought that would be cooler. That became the jazz thing, and then Alex gave his favorite jazz album to our producing director, Michael Cuesta. It was a Bill Evans thing from the 60s. It turned out Michael Cuesta's father had taken the cover shot for that thing, just against all odds. So then it seemed very important that she liked jazz. And if you've ever tried to sell jazz to a network, they hate jazz, because people don't usually like jazz. So that became an uphill battle, but it was so fated, I think, that it had happened.
You know, today we were talking earlier, you're talking about, you know, so just so we're clear, I mean, Nicholas Brody is a returning soldier and a sensible war hero, and Carrie Matheson, played by Claire Danes, is this intelligence officer who works for the Central Intelligence Agency, right? So, and the thing the take you seem to have on Brody is that he may not be the hero, but you have a thing about he doesn't know how to tell the truth, and that maybe the show is about our American propensity to kind of spin things. Can you talk about that a little bit? About he gets caught doing something, right? He almost blows up the vice president.
Right.
No small.
That's a big spoiler.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it.
Well, they've seen it.
Okay.
Wait, you said we could do spoilers. But, no, it's not a spoiler, because he says I didn't do it.
Right,
Right.
in season 2 he does. Yeah, there's like...
Now that's a spoiler right there, I mean.
And the vice president dies. Whoops, did I actually say that? Yeah, but we've been kind of, partially because of this event, actually, I was sort of thinking about, like, what do people like about this? And because you have to understand, too, we would hear people like this show, and it took a long time before we would believe it, I guess.
Why didn't you believe them?
Well, because we liked it, but I don't know.
If they're in your club, they got to be weird? Or
You just never know why. You just never know what people are up to. But I think around the time that the Emmys landed, we thought, oh, there really is something people are really responding to, and so it had this odd effect of like digging back a little bit and trying to see what that would be. And it seems like the fact that you deeply do not know which way is up in the show is at least an important part of it. I don't know if that's what people like, but it's an important part of it. So in Brody's case, he just lies. He just lies all the time. He's like, and that kind of mendacity where you just lie to people all the time just seems to me like the part of the way America is right now. I don't know why that is, but it just seems like it's a part of it. And if you get found out, if they say, well, you know, look at this fact, it's right here, you're absolutely wrong what you just said, you just proceed as if it doesn't even matter to you.
Mm-hmm.
So like
I know people like that.
yeah, so in season 2, there's this little suicide tape, right, from the first season, right?
Spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler. And they show it to him, and you'd think he would just go, okay, you got me, I'm a terrorist. And he does not do that. He just goes, that doesn't make any difference. That doesn't matter that you have that. I didn't do anything, did I? That's all that matters. I was having a bad day. And that kind of just, the audacity of that, I think, is just like what I see on TV all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for Carrie, it's a little different. On TV, meaning like pundits and stuff.
Right.
You know, just these people pushing this point of view, and they just don't care about anything but their agenda. On Carrie's side, it's a little different, I think. We never quite know what her motivations are. So she has this, we're going to see some clips later of their relationship, which is sort of the core of the show, I think. And we never quite know what her motivations are, in that she'll do outrageous things with him, and while she's with him, we think it's about him, that they have some kind of meaningful thing. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, she'll say to the people at the CIA, who maybe were listening in, we'll see, you know, it didn't really matter, it was nothing, I was just doing my job, I was doing what I had to do. Mm-hmm. So she has this odd thing too. And then we do some storytelling where purposefully what you think you're seeing is not what you're seeing. And the end of season 2 is certainly like that. The
Mm-hmm.
episodes leading up to that, we think they mean one thing, and they're really pushing to something totally different.
Mm-hmm. What are they trying, I mean, what's Carrie's goal? What is she trying to, I mean, what's her arc? Where is she headed? What is she trying to prevent?
I think that's her goal, what she's trying to prevent, which is that she's trying to prevent another 9/11. Mm-hmm. And she blames herself for the first one. Why she does this, I don't know. She was very young at the time, but she feels it's part of her hubris in a way, that
Right.
she feels that she was uniquely qualified to stop that, and she didn't, and it weighs on her. And I don't want to do the huge spoiler thing, but it becomes a big part of the end of second season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as in jazz, which kind of always disassembles itself and kind of comes back together. She seems to be doing that all the time in the show. She kind of fall apart, and then in that, when she does that, she has these insights.
Yeah.
And then it's spooky in a way, and interesting. She's a fascinating character.
Yeah, I think, you know, we did that episode in first season episode, it was called The Vest, where she actually went kind of nuts. And we had this kind of, we wanted to do a Beautiful Mind thing, and by the time you say it like that, you go, I don't really want to do what they did in A Beautiful Mind, I want to do something else. But we kind of figured out this thing that was a little like that, but where her friend Saul came in to help her. And it felt that kind of collective thing, that there was this damaged person who's a little crazy, but if you just sort of like lovingly turn her a little bit in the right direction sometimes, she's this amazing force.
This is when she makes the big collage.
Yeah, the big collage that ends up from, you know, as boy, if you try to put TV episodes together, this happens all the time. You think you have some idea, and then it just ends up a bunch of cards on the floor, and that's kind of what happened to her. But somebody comes in after her and starts kind of putting them up and completing her work, and it was kind of lovely.
Well, let's talk about that, about how you make this television show, and take us through a day in the life of you as the executive producer and one of the writers. Mm-hmm. Describe to us the lush accommodations in which you go to work every day.
Yeah. Well, my chauffeur drives my Rolls Royce up the driveway 10:30, maybe 11 in the morning. And we have like the most austere prison-like writer's room in LA. It's windowless. I'd say it's about the size of this proscenium, this part of it though. And we have a bunch of chairs stuffed in it. We have not cork, but sort of a painted substance, you know, that you can put push pins into on the walls. A bunch of cards with whatever episodes we're working on. And it's just a terrible, dreadful space, but we're very superstitious. So we don't want to leave it now.
Is it like in an office park somewhere? I mean, is it?
Well, it's on the Fox lot, but it's like
Oh.
one of those buildings that's charmless. Like the one next door, F. Scott Fitzgerald had his office there, and we kind of look out at it like this. Mm-hmm. Ours looks like a dentist's office. Mm-hmm. The new girl is across the hall, and we like those guys, and we get to see Zooey Deschanel sometimes. So
Right.
that's the perk.
Just like one of you posted at the door, wait, she's coming. That's, I'm surprised to hear that. I mean, I understand it, but I think most people think, oh, you work in television and it's kind of Fat City. But you really, it's a job, and you show up, and the writers are really king in television, aren't they? It's a storyteller's
Well, they're kings of this, like...
medium.
Well, I was going to say of this, like, desolate...
Yeah. Well...
mind-numbing thing.
But you are the... When the actors wake up in the morning, they think, oh, is Chip going to kill me today, right?
There's some of that, yeah.
Yeah. It's got to feel good. I mean, yeah. I mean, you're living in this crappy room, and I mean...
I can say that Estes dies, right? People, is that too...
I think you just did, so
yeah. So I can actually say it.
Yeah.
But I did.
Yeah.
But whenever an actor dies, you always get an email that says, yeah, it's been great on your show, thanks for the thing. And then, like, that little thing, and I'm happy to, take one for the team. And then, like, a huge email afterwards, like, saying why they should stay alive, why their part should be expanded, how important they are to the thing. And every once in a while it works. Like, Peter Weller did that on 24. He, like, got a few more episodes out of it. Galvez got some more episodes out of us.
Oh, Galvez did?
Yeah, he got a few more.
He gets shot, and then he gets in that roadblock.
Right.
Earlier.
Well,
okay.
Before that, he was going to have been gone by then. But
so it works sometimes.
It does work sometimes. So I guess it's worth the shot.
What do you call that email? Like the "Let Me Live" email, or the?
But it really does always take they just go for the big lie about how, like, this. It's usually a small part, and then how it should, like, sort of expand, become a regular,
And what do you do when you read it? You say, no, you're going down.
Yeah.
I mean, you do that kind of. I mean.
Well, no, we actually read them and we go, we'll do that, because what do we know? But David Harewood just did the first one, right? He just said, it's been great, and he really meant that. And the entire crew sent us the other one, because he was so beloved at this place. He's like the favorite actor there. So we got all these emails from the crew, and they were doing T-shirts that said, save number 5, he's number 5 on the call sheet. I just had never seen it. It was kind of amazing.
So you show up, and you have these cards, and how many people are sitting around this table? Because
there are 5 of us, plus we had an assistant who is now a staff writer, actually. Yeah.
And tell us who the staff is.
It's Alex Gonza, who created it with Howard Gordon. Howard's very much in and out, because he has other stuff he does. Alex Carey, who we just lost to a pilot. Meredith Steam, who we just lost to a show called The Bridge, which is her new pilot. Henry Bremel, and myself. So it's really down to 3 of us now, except I'm here, so it's down to 2 of them there.
Mm-hmm. And
Henry was sick just as I've been, so maybe it's just Alex in the room by himself.
So he could kill anybody, and there's no one to really...
He can do what he wants.
Wow, I mean, that's just so amazing to me. The show is so big and expansive, and we were talking earlier today about how it's almost like a Dickens novel. Each week a new installment arrives on your screen, and you kind of, because I see this as kind of a filmed novel. I see this great surge in long-form storytelling happening on cable, and it's as a writer, it's really exciting, and I think it's exciting for us as audiences. But to then realize that it might just be Henry or someone in the room taking cards, right, and putting them up, and says, today this is what's going to happen, and then moving them around.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, if you were here for Vince's thing, a few of us came through the same factory there, which was Chris Carter, who he created X-Files and he created some other shows, but that was his main thing. That's kind of where we came up as producers. So the card system was actually like a fetish there. I know he like implied that, but it was really even more than he was saying, like that your handwriting had to be perfect. There were these little 5x7 cards that you put on a cork board, I don't know, about this tall and this wide, and you'd be forced to carry it around the lot with you. Your story, you know?
That's your story. That's so cool.
It was the weirdest thing, though.
You should make your kids do that. I mean, so if you were to write the story, if you write a couple cards about the evening so far, what would they be?
Well, they have to be scenes, you know? So this is one continuous scene.
Okay.
So I would call this the interrogation, maybe this.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't even started. No, so you do interrogation as a header.
Yeah.
And then you might do this, some of the beats that we've talked about on stage.
It could be like interrogation goes south. You know, it might be something like that, or however you construe what's going.
And then that would go up, and that would be a scene somewhere in
Clips shown, widespread dismay, or something like that.
Okay.
You know?
So they're very real and they're anchors, but they're also very suggestive and kind of they're sketches. They're not so much.
Yeah, because it has to fit on a little card. We actually cheat a little on the system, so I think the whole kismet of it is gone. We have abandoned that, because it's really the fetish of the cards we don't do. So the handwriting is a little sloppier, and the cards are actually about this big, but we're putting them up on a wall. So.
Mm-hmm. What do you like about television writing? And because
I wasn't crazy about the handwriting thing. I thought that was very arbitrary, so I'm glad to be done with that.
With having to do the cards, you mean?
Well, we do the card. The cards work. I don't know if there are writers here who want to write screenplays or TV. I just don't know anything that compares to it. It's got a magical, alchemical thing because it forces you to do actual scenes. Mm-hmm. And you don't put a card up if you don't have a scene. If you don't have, in the simplest version, two people with different attitudes starting somewhere and coming to some result, you don't have a scene, so you don't put up a card, so just don't do it. And you can build stories that way because you start to really track stories and mm-hmm. stuff like that. And you're not worried so much about how you're going to do that scene yet. You're just...
But what do you like about the whole process of this Tell me what it's like for you to sit down. Tell us what's taken place before you actually go home and sit down in your office and you get an episode to write.
Well, part of the change in things has been that TV generally has gone to a serialized format for a variety of reasons, one of which is the way we watch it. We had first DVDs, now we have on demand, and a lot of things that allow us to watch things without commercials, pay more attention, mm-hmm. watch things all at once. So serialized storytelling is now a possibility. I think 24 had a lot to do with that. It had huge DVD sales. What this is meant for writers is that as opposed to X-Files where you would just be carrying this board around, which was your story.
For that episode.
Yeah, you'd have to have a train of people carrying them around because one feeds into the next, feeds into the next. So we all have to know what everybody else's story is, which you didn't used to have to know. Which means that we have to work, which means in practice that we work them all out together. We sit in a room and in this windowless room and just sort of try to come up with stuff. And agree on it. We have a very democratic process at Homeland where the assumption is that somebody will come up with an idea that's liked enough that we'll all go, yeah, that's it.
Really? Yeah. You try to get into Carrie's head and figure out what's driving her.
Yeah.
And Brody as well. So motivations and very different than what you did on 24, right? Which was, what is Jack Bauer going to do today? What was the...
24. One big difference is that 24 was obviously 24 episodes, and I believe that the human mind cannot grasp 24 episodes. It's just too much. 12 you can kind of get your head around as 3 acts, so it's very different. So now we're working 12 episodes. We need an idea that will kind of take us through 12 episodes, mm-hmm. and then we start breaking it out into actual episodes.
So you've all pitched this out, the 5 or 6 of you, been around the table. Is there anything else on the table? Like
we don't. Well, we have
snacks.
Yeah,
drinks?
we do have some snacks.
Yeah. But you sit there and talk. It sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, you say, so what if she did this? And then you would say, I just don't buy that.
Mostly we don't talk about Homeland, though. We just yammer about junk.
Really?
Yeah, we avoid working.
Like what kind of junk? I mean, what like?
I don't know, like somebody's getting a hip replacement. We have an old staff, so we'll talk about that.
Does that get its own card? I mean, how does that work? What?
And then somebody will go like, yeah, my shoulder. I had a cortisone shot recently, so I'll tell people about that. That's how we pass the day.
Yeah. And then, I know what you're saying, but you're really working the show out, right? As you're talking about this, because
no, we do focus eventually, but it's. I'm not quite sure how it works. You start putting stuff up, and then it doesn't work, and you put it to the side, and maybe it will come back.
But there's no stress. It's like
No, it's totally stressful, actually.
Okay.
People don't sleep.
Really?
It's very stressful, actually, while it's going on,
Yeah. Well, you were telling me earlier today about someone on 24 who was actually playing chess. And as he was doing that, he would come up with an idea which would work for everybody.
We don't work that way. We beat our heads against the wall. This was one of the guys who created 24. His name's Bob Cochran. Is just some kind of weird genius. He's also an historian, and he would play simultaneous games of chess, apparently paying no attention to the discussion, and then would just pitch out some idea that would give us the next 3 episodes. So, but that's not how we do it. We just like.
Do you find, like, by 3 o'clock, you look at the watch, say, oh, we really got to get to work? Is that the kind of thing it is?
No, we actually do work, I guess.
Yeah. Which brings us to season 3.
Yeah, that's what we're doing now. We're
yeah.
We've been in the room about 2 weeks now, and we're thinking probably if you're a fan of the show and you saw how season 2 ended, we're asking ourselves the exact same questions that you are. Like, what's going to happen? Brody and Carrie, who were kind of together, don't seem to be now. So what's this thing going to look like next year?
Where do you go? What place do you go in your own psyche or your own experience to answer that question? Or in other words, what are your influences in finding those answers?
I think all of us, we're kind of a bookish group, so we read either stuff that seems on point, like some nonfiction stuff, or novels, something to get your head out of it a little bit. We get to a lot of, unlike 24, where we never did any research ever. It was kind of a point of pride that you just made junk up. And
you mean literally you would make something up? Like,
yeah, what do you mean?
well, like, you need some gizmo to get him out of this.
Right, or
yeah.
so, if we needed to keep everybody here, we would institute an administrative lockdown, that sounds like it would keep everybody here for a while. But, or the satellite surveillance we invented, to our minds anyway, first season is a kind of cool thing. But we do a lot of research on Homeland because we try to keep it real. It's part of the look and feel of the show. We really try to, we have consultants for Muslim things, for CIA stuff, for FBI stuff, for mental health things. So that's a little bit killing time, but it's also useful. We had this, there's a Muslim group called Most that we have worked with since 24, really. And they must hate the show in a way, but they're friends and they're very patient with us. And they, first season, that whole sequence where Brody first comes back to life by joining a prayer group came out of a thing we were talking about with them, and just how how prayer is a collective thing if you're Muslim. And so we immediately made a story for us where we take Brody, put him into a solitary confinement where he just is dying to be with other people. And that became his first foray into Islam. He comes out and there are these people there who allow him to join them. And that seemed something that we could show, as opposed to saying, oh, he must be so crushed psychically that he would turn to the Quran or something. That was like that. So we get little things from all over.
Another take on the psychic turn that that's more fresh.
Yeah. And honestly, it allowed us to not talk about religion. It was more about just the human behavior that everybody can relate to, of being isolated and just being desperate for some human contact.
When you go, what's your favorite part of the writing process? To go, is it the first draft?
That's what I like. Yeah.
You've all pitched out the show, and is it true that you would get an episode and then say, is it Meredith would get another episode, and so you all kind of sent out back to your desks to crank these scripts out, kind of in some kind of sequence.
Right.
And one is being shot while you're writing the next one, or the third next one.
Right.
It sounds a very chaotic process in some ways.
It gets chaotic because the writer's room starts as 5 people, and then you lose one person because they're writing, and you're down to 4. You lose another person because they're in Charlotte, or on the set, and you're down another, and somebody else is in post editing, and you quickly get down to 2 people.
And you write a script in 8 or 9 days?
Well, I know I said that. That's actually not quite true. Because first of all, you've done this story process upstream of that goes on for weeks sometimes. And you can do a draft in 8 or 9 days. And then for me, I spend almost as much time rewriting it, once I get notes. But that to me is the pleasurable part. It's where you kind of know what you're going to do because you've all worked out the story, you've pitched out ideas, you've just got lots of stuff in your head, and you just have to sort of imagine the physicality of it and let the characters talk as they say. I mean, that always sounded so hokey to me, but that's the process, really. You just let it
How did you
happen.
develop your ear for dialogue?
When I moved out to LA after my rock band broke up,
We're going to make you play later.
Yeah, that was the saddest story ever told.
What is the saddest story?
I was in this band that was my career plan, such as it was, after college. And
you grew up in Rochester, Michigan.
Yeah.
Your dad works in the auto industry and seatbelts and airbags, and your
Yeah.
mom's a chemistry teacher in high school.
yeah, in Troy, Michigan.
In Troy.
Yeah.
And you go off to Harvard to study math.
I go off to study math. I take a course called Math 55 freshman year, which is calculus on manifolds, and decide that maybe that's not right for me.
Mm-hmm.
So
What was the theorem that put you off math?
Stokes' theorem.
Oh, Stokes'
Yeah.
theorem. I'm not familiar with that. What is it?
I think I could have gotten there in a couple of years, but it was like, I had actually gone to Oakland University I ran out of stuff in high school, and so I took some classes at a local college, and so I was not prepared. Well, anyway, so.
But you're at Harvard studying math.
Yeah, I'm studying math for 1 year basically, and I end up doing government and German. But my roommate and I started a band after that. We, for some reason, started it in France, where we did not know the language, and quickly ran out of what little money we had. Came back to New York and sort of and ended up in a place called the Music Building, which existed in those days, which was just a bunch of bands. So we had this band he's actually a big film composer now, and our percussionist wrote and produced a lot of Madonna's early material. So we had some abilities.
You had a
in this
record
band.
Contract at one point.
We were offered a record contract after 3 years, at which point our Irish lead singer, and I say she's Irish just because she was, and not because the commitments tells you everything you need to know about Irish singers. Mm-hmm. So we had a record contract on the table, and she decided just overnight that pop music was evil and she did not want to do it anymore. Literally got on a plane, went back to England actually, where she redevoted her life to Gurdjieff. I was just sitting there going what just happened?
Really? Is that the saddest story ever told?
Well, it's not that sad now that I've got some distance, but at the time.
It was crushing.
Well, yeah.
Because you played CBGB in the Mud Club.
We played big places. We opened for XTC on a little tour, and we thought we were going places, and then it was just gone.
What kind of music was it?
It was called New Wave in those days. It was like 80s stuff.
Mm-hmm. You were the guitarist?
I was a guitarist, yeah.
But you told me at one point you didn't really know how to play the instruments. Is that true?
No, we were actually pretty... I don't know how to play blues guitar, but
okay.
I'd learned a different way. I went to...
So it makes perfect sense then after your...
It's not as sad if we didn't know how to play our instruments. It's like then they should never have been a rock band.
Right. Yeah. I think it all worked out because somehow you moved to Los Angeles, and in 1991 you're writing television. How did you do that?
Well, I took some acting class. I had no preparation for it. I just stumbled into it. Like when I got out there, people I knew from the Harvard Lampoon who were doing sitcoms. So everybody was writing TV, but not 1 hour. And I took some acting classes, which I was pretty dreadful at, which we're going to read something later, so we'll show that. Mm-hmm. But I think it taught me how scenes are constructed and how dialogue is made.
And that year for dialogue, right. Who did you take classes in a studio? Was it?
Well, there are a bunch of little acting studios in LA, so I went through a few of them.
And did you work on the Harvard Lampoon?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, it was kind of great. It was actually kind of great. It's like a club, or it's a group. It puts out a magazine sporadically. In those days, it wasn't all computer done. We actually stayed up all night and cut and pasted,
Cut blue lines, yeah.
It was kind of great, and we do little demonstrations sometimes.
And who are the other alums from that magazine that moved out to California?
Well, the whole Simpsons staff was my vintage that moved out and did that.
Cool, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't get me to you writing that first television script. I mean, did it just, you thought, music didn't work out, I don't really want to be an actor, I'm literate, so I'll start writing.
I had to get a job.
You had to get a job.
Yeah.
Was it easy in those days to break in? I mean, was it?
It wasn't easy, but it was a little bit clear. You would just write a spec script of a TV series you liked, and then hopefully get an agent. I got a great agent just on a fluke, and I had a spec script that people really liked. I'd written, when you started, you would go, I know other people wrote 10 before they did a good one, but that's not going to happen to me, so of course you end up writing 10 scripts. one of them finally ends up being good, and that's the one that works for you.
Is that on your 10th you hit?
It was about my 10th, yeah.
What was it called?
It was called White Anger Machine. It was a it was a Law and Order spec. Law and Order was brand new then, and it was this kind of white supremacist group murder mystery.
I mean,
we've never talked about any of this.
No, we haven't talked about the White Anger Machine. No, it's interesting. So, how is it different today, working in television?
Well, they're much more open to new material. And I think what's good if people are interested in TV is that they're much more open to original material as samples. In fact, they're not interested in seeing if you can write an episode of Law and Order SVU. They want to know what would your pilot look like, because in those days the assumption was if you wrote a pilot, you should be able to execute the show. You should be able to be the showrunner, and that's not the way it works anymore. So it's a little more like movies now, where you can just do a spec script, and it's conceivable it will sell if you can get it into the right hands.
And don't they often want to pair the untested writer who's never been with a showrunner?
Yeah, exactly.
And you develop it together.
Yeah.
What would you tell people in the audience who like this kind of storytelling? I mean, what should they do if they want to take a next step?
Well, I mean, it's all material driven. So I have a firm belief that if you have a great script, it will get sold. I don't know if it'll get made, especially on the movie side, but it'll get sold. And in any case, will get you a lot of attention. So now the way it is, it really makes sense to develop original material. If you have a thought for a great TV series, you write it as a pilot and try to get it seen.
Well, you want to set up? Let's watch some great television.
Okay.
What are we going to see?
We're going to see two clips both from season 2, and they're both hopefully talk a little bit about this uncertainty that we talked about how you can't quite tell which end is up. They both involve our two main characters, Carrie Matheson and Nicholas Brody. The first one is from episode 4. It's the very end of episode 4. So if you've made it through the end of season 1, where he goes into the bunker intending to wipe out as much of the U.S. government as he can and does not, at that point, Carrie, who had been saying this guy was a terrorist, and in fact was the only one who really saw things clearly, even though he didn't go through with it, is so destroyed by the way things play out that she actually, and by his saying, "Look, you were crazy. I didn't do anything. You really have the wrong guy," that she got everything so wrong. She actually goes back into a mental institution for electroconvulsive therapy at the end of season 1. By this point, she's found out, as have other people in the CIA, a very closed circle, that she was actually right about Brody. And what they're trying to do, because they think another attack is coming, is they want to run her back to Brody to see what she can find out. So the first clip takes place. That's about where we are with the first clip, right?
So the idea is, so I can imagine the discussion in the writer's room is, okay, they seem to be in love. They seem to be boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever you want to call it. But yet he's a possible terrorist and she is a government employee. And somehow, though, those opposites are going to bring them together in kind of this volcanic relationship, which these clips really dramatize.
Right.
And you're always wondering, is she doing this for her job, or is she doing this out of some kind of emotional urge that she has? Does she really like the guy?
Yeah, and they had a real relationship. If you didn't see the show, they had a real relationship in season 1. And that's why she's the right person to go in and see what's going on. Brody's handler described it as renewing his relationship with Carrie, meaning he's going to pick it up. And so from both sides, they're kind of being pushed toward each other. So she comes in, he's finally kind of nibbled on the hook and has called her up, and she's going to come in and just play him for a while and see how it goes.
So in this clip, right, he's reinitiated some contact.
Yeah.
Just because he's actually now, he's a congressman. We ought to say that, right?
Yeah, he's a congressman in the second season.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I'm getting.
He's definitely a congressman.
24 episodes.
He may or may not be a terrorist. He's definitely a congressman.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's got all these things going, but the thing to keep in mind is that the reality is to get close to someone who you may be tracking or surveilling. I mean, you in some ways have to insinuate yourself into their lives, and,
Right.
and in some cases get that close to them, I imagine.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, we're going to drop the screen, and then...
We're going to...
Go ahead.
And then do you want to just... Well, go ahead. We'll read the thing and then look at the other sheet as well. Okay.
Read the script off the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's drop it, and then we're going to stand over there and we'll do a little... So tell us what this is, Chip.
So this is shot in a Marriott hotel, Doug. It's we're calling it the Ashford Hotel, but it's a Marriott in Charlotte.
Oh, wait, is this show filmed in Charlotte, North Carolina?
Yeah, it is. It is filmed in Charlotte, North Carolina. So Carrie enters. She finds Brody. He sees her too. She sits next to him.
You and me in bars.
It always has an interesting ending, doesn't it?
So far.
He's ordered her a drink. They clink glasses, sip. By the way, this is not a booty call.
That didn't even cross my mind.
I just want to say that up front.
Yeah. Wait, I'm not really feeling this. Can we start over? Go ahead. You and me in bars.
They both smile, amused. He is renewing, which was like renewing the contact, and she's playing along. So I wanted to show you just one thing. Can we see this is the same page now as marked up by our script supervisor after we've shot it out. I just wanted people to have a sense of like what goes into a modern TV production. Each one of these things is what you'd call a setup. So if we're trying to photograph you, we might have something wide and low here that could kind of get everybody, and Doug might have a separate camera that's sort of roaming faces. That would be an A and B camera, but that's one setup. So this would be like one setup with an A and B camera, the two lines. The squiggle is where somebody's dialogue is not being covered. So for example, here where we have Brody dialogue in a squiggle, that means his dialogue's not being covered.
By that camera.
By that camera, yeah. By the first one, we see they're both being covered. And if you look up top, you see that A is the master shot, meaning something pretty big, covering both of them. The B camera is a, FS, it looks like full shot to a medium shot of Carrie, which is why her dialogue is being covered and his is not. But so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that, setups, times a couple of cameras, times however many takes we do in each thing. So there have probably been 80 camera passes of the scene, and it's just two people sitting in a bar talking by the time you see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so who does this squiggling?
This is Cara, our script supervisor. I don't know how she manages to do this. There are also other pages she fills out that would have things like focal lengths of cameras, f-stops, this kind of stuff.
But what's so interesting about this format, though, is when you sat down at your computer at home, none of this is in your head. What you're really thinking of, can we go back to the blank page, Joe? You're sitting there, and this is what you're writing. You're hearing the voices, a little stage direction once in a while, but you're just really letting the story unfold.
In something like this where it's just two people talking, for sure, because
Yeah.
you're not so concerned about the blocking, really, when they come in, when they leave, that sort of stuff.
So we're going to see this scene now. It's about 7 minutes long, and then there's a break, and then we'll set up the next scene, which is about 8 minutes long. And
Okay.
does that sound good? Anything else we need to say?
Nope.
He's in a bar. He wants to meet her again.
Yeah, he's trying to connect with her to see what she knows. He senses he is actually up to no good once again. So he senses that she's onto him somehow, and she's, eager to get into what that is.
Because she fears that he's going to do he's up to maybe another attack or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. We'll see you in a moment.
You and me in bars.
Always ends up in an interesting way, though, doesn't it?
So far.
By the way, this is not a booty call.
Didn't even cross my mind.
Just wanted to say that up front.
Done.
I'm not here by choice. My wife's fed up.
Oh, well, that can't be good politics. You're supposed to be the new JFK and Jackie.
So it all ends with a bullet in my brain, huh?
Whoa. Dark turn.
Yeah, sorry.
How's she doing?
Reeling him in. So, how are you?
Well, I told you, I'm good.
And you're working again.
I am. And, I'm getting pretty close.
Two?
My goal?
Vague. Extremely vague.
Yes, well, I can't name names.
No, of course.
But I'm circling a certain terrorist.
Hey, so long as it's not me.
No. My focus is back on the right guy.
The big guy.
The head of the snake guy. Who stole 8 years of your life? Anyway, no, I should shut up.
Hey, listen, Carrie. You said sorry to me 100 times.
You need 101?
No, it's my turn. I felt crappy about what happened, tricking you, calling Estes.
Oh, that.
You know, I did it because I was worried about you.
Well, it was worrisome. My behavior.
You know, and I'm sorry for all you went through.
No, don't be.
I mean, fucking ECT.
Where'd you hear that?
Well, I asked about you.
Oh.
Did you have to do it a lot?
Mondays and Thursdays for 6 weeks.
Was it terrible?
No. No. Truthfully, you don't even feel a thing. So.
Well, that which makes you stronger.
Right.
Well, I'm glad we did this.
Well, that's it?
Yeah, I got an early morning.
Okay. Well, I got it.
No, don't be silly. Room 416, please.
Brody,
It was really good seeing you.
That was great.
No, that was terrible.
What do you expect, a confession?
He made me.
No way. He's on his way up to his room. He's acting totally normal.
Peter, he knows.
Saul and I watched the whole thing.
No, put Saul on.
You did fine, Carrie.
No, I got pissed when he talked about ECT. I showed my hand for the slightest second, and he saw. He saw, and he went away.
Well, that's not how we read it here.
We have to go in. He's on to me.
Come back, Carrie.
Saul, I saw it in his eyes. He'll send a signal. He'll put a wine glass in the window or whatever, and they'll go to ground. We go in now.
Because you saw it in his eyes?
Yeah, that's right.
Your work is done tonight. Get the fuck back here. Jesus, how many times you gotta tell us something?
A lot.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, what is she doing?
Why did he mention his room number? I asked myself. Is it just to pay the bill, or maybe?
Maybe to get you alone. Again.
It reeks, you know.
My confusion?
Your bullshit.
I don't follow.
She's blowing it.
It's blown. Go in.
We know.
Take the goddamn room, goddammit.
We only have a few more minutes alone.
You still have your twisted theories about me, don't you?
Not theories anymore.
Look, I'm sorry I called. I guess I thought we could be friends.
Friends? Ah, yeah. Yeah, do I want to be friends with a demented ex-soldier who hates America? Who decided strapping on a bomb was the answer to what ailed him? Despite his daughter, his son, people who loved him in real life, not in the mind-fuck world of Abu Nazir. Who in the end didn't have the stones to go through with it, but had no problem sending me to the nut house? Yeah, no thanks. I don't think I need a friend like that.
Okay. Not friends. Get the fuck away from her.
So what are you gonna do now? Are you gonna kill me? You gonna blame it on rough sex, maybe? I mean, how long can you get away with something like that?
I've had a pretty good run so far.
It's true.
I seem to be good at this. If nothing else.
You're special.
I liked you, Carrie.
I loved you.
Hands behind your back! On the floor! Get out of here! Relax! Get out!
Are you good?
If only the circumstances had been wildly different. You're a disgrace to your nation, Sergeant Nicholas Brody. You're a traitor and a terrorist, and now it's time you pay for that.
That was written by Meredith Steam, this one, from episode 4. And it kind of showed the two people lying at each other and where that ended up.
Yeah, I had no idea where that scene would end up. That it ends in the bar with him trying to reconnect, and then it ends with him being arrested on the floor of the hotel room.
Yeah.
It's pretty It's great. There's this moment when he decides that she knows he's up to something, and then she's in the room and her face turns, and then she discloses what she thinks of him.
Yeah.
That's not written in the script pages, right? That's all the actor's magic.
Well, we'd have to look. My guess is there's something that says that. But, you know, it's funny, on the Damian side, we were always wondering, like, because we'd get stuff back, we'd get footage back, and we'd go, it's so clear that he's up to no good. And every scene, the scenes with his family and stuff, and we asked him how he did that, finally, and he really would just choose a moment in each scene where he would give us something kind of nasty. Because he just said that it was too complex to play I'm a loving father and a terrorist. Like, what does that actually look like? So he would sort of segregate the terrorist part of it. And you kind of see that thing clearly here, too, when that moment where he seems to see through her is very, very clear.
Do you think she's telling the truth when she says in under other circumstances we might be together? Does she really love him?
You know, I think it's the nature of love that you never really know. You know, it's not just the nature of her and him and her madness and his indiscretions. It's like, it's kind of the nature of a relationship that you never really know. So maybe that gives it some of its depth. It's sort of the dynamic of things.
So in some ways, I mean, the show's really about their relation. It's about a man and a woman's relationship at one very elemental level.
Yeah, this one anyway.
Yeah. So tell us what we have.
This one now is we're 4 episodes later here, so they've just had this thing where you'd think they couldn't possibly be friends again, right? But we'll see, things have progressed. And if you haven't seen it, I really have to recommend the episode after this, written by Henry Bromell. It's called a Q&A. It's the most amazing hour of TV you'll ever see in your life, almost. It's really astonishing.
What do you like about Q&A?
That it's astonishing.
Yeah, yeah. You just said to write an astonishing episode and you went off? Or?
Well, no, Henry Bromell did that one.
Yeah, and you wrote this one.
I wrote this one we're going to see next, because it's like 4 episodes later. And we see again like the surveillance level and a kind of variation on the you don't quite know what's going on here, where the same two characters, Saul and Quinn, are kind of squabbling over what it means that they're listening to. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, Brody has finally kind of confessed that he was going to blow up the vice president. He's made a deal to allow that to remain a secret, and he's kind of blowing up. We've moved pretty fast, so 4 episodes later, a lot has happened. He's kind of feeling like he can't go through with it, and at this point, she's taken him off grid against the CIA's explicit instructions, and is trying to keep him on board, trying to keep him going in this thing.
So he's a double agent. He's actually being handled by a nefarious person who thinks he's on the up and up, but he's actually now also working for the CIA.
Exactly, yeah, and it's getting to be too much for him.
Right.
Do you want to just look at the script supervisor page there? This is, you can see it's a little bit simpler than the last one. The previous one was a guest director who kind of shoots a little more conventionally, so he gets more angles and stuff. This is our producing director, Michael Cuesta, who, if you like the look and feel of the show, it's due to this guy, Michael Cuesta. He's really amazing. It breaks our heart that he didn't win the Emmy for directing, but we certainly think he deserved it. He really created the look and feel of this show. But he shoots less in angles and a little more movement in the camera move. So you'll see, like, here we have 3 moves in the first setup. You know, it goes from medium close of Brody to a cowboy of Brody, which, depending on who you ask, is, you know, from here or so up.
So the cowboy is like the name of a shot where you just shoot someone's knees moving across the room?
Well, no, it's like from there up.
Yeah, okay.
So.
Okay. That would be a revert, yeah, okay.
Yeah. I don't know what they would call that, just the knees. And then it goes.
Wait, that's the grasshopper. Yeah.
And then a cowboy 2-shot, which presumably includes Carrie at some point. And again, we're shooting A and B cameras.
Is there something about special effects in this one?
Yeah, there is. You see over to the right now, we have these VFX shots. At this point, our actress, Claire Danes, is getting very pregnant. And we had a horrible time with season 2. We were planning to go to a different ending. Halfway through the season, Showtime, they didn't say we couldn't do it, but they said, if you don't do it, we'll give you an immediate pickup for season 3. So at that point, the studio said, you can't do it. And we had to reinvent the ending of season 2. We just stared at a wall for like 2 months in denial.
And everyone had a lot of surgery, and you talked
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Finally, we came up with the ending that was that you saw in season 2, if you saw that. My point is, just as far as it relates to her pregnancy, we just couldn't deal with another thing, so we just decided to pretend it wasn't happening. And but it was. So they came up with this visual effects thing where we would have what they called a belly double do all the stuff after Claire, so that we could just kind of composite it, and she would be in roughly the same place. So we had Claire, who is Claire. We had her stand-in, who tries to look like Claire. We had a belly double, who looks like Claire, and a stunt double. So at this point in the season, there are 4 women on the set who look roughly like Claire Danes. The other weird little thing here is just you see in the tail end of the previous scene that the actors changed the dialogue a little. They usually don't, because we're certainly open to their suggestions, but they usually, by the time it's shot, nothing changes. And you can see that the script supervisor just noted how the actors changed. The previous scene, Jessica said, "I love you" to her daughter, and her daughter said goodnight.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's about it.
Okay.
Did we set it up or no?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, that she's trying to keep him on track here. What's that?
Well, they've ended up in a motel,
Mm-hmm.
which Saul, in that observation room, calls a safe harbor, right? It's a place she goes to. And what does she want out of this scene?
Well, she's really just trying to keep him on board here. And
Working for her.
Yeah, it becomes this thing where you don't know how truthful she's being with him. We understand she has this agenda. She has to keep him on board. But again, it's 4 episodes later. A lot has happened, and she really does just cosmically care about this guy.
Could you go to the unmarked page, Joe? Let's just talk just for a moment before we go to this, because I love this scene, but this bit of dialogue right here, just talk about writing it. This line, "I'm more alone now than I was at the bottom of that hole in Iraq." And then you have this bit of exposition.
One thing here, like he says he's burned every bridge with Nazir, with the CIA, with my family. This deal he made, if you saw the show, it basically says his family won't know and it protects them. But my feeling is this guy is not a guy who loves his family that much. He has a mistress in the form of a CIA agent. He was going to blow himself up, and it would have embarrassed them, or whatever the actual proper word is, horribly. So that was the kind of thing we'd squabble around. Other people feel like, oh, he's a guy, so he loves his family. And so I kind of added it as just a little thing on the end. I probably wouldn't have even enumerated them, I think. So that might have been due to a note, too.
Mm-hmm.
But so it should play as Carrie actually, she basically, you'll see she kind of keeps things going by saying we're in the same boat, you and I, and we have something that's meaningful. And on the surveillance side, you'll see they're wondering just whether it's true or not.
Okay, good. Let's watch the scene.
How long do you think before they find us?
Depends how hard they look.
I'm guessing they'll look pretty hard. I was thinking, I've finally done it.
What?
Burnt every bridge. With Ebenezer. With the CIA. With my family. I'm more alone now than I was at the bottom of that hole in Iraq.
Whatever damage you think you've done, the only way to make it mean something is to stay in the game against Nazir.
No, that's over.
They need you. Roy said.
Believe me. Whatever plan they had for me has already been replaced by something else. And someone else. I'm done. Let the CIA do what they want. At least I'll finally be able to stop lying to everybody. At least that part will be a relief. You visit me in prison?
I'll probably be in the cell next to you. Which, I have to admit, isn't the future I imagined for us.
Us? What did you imagine?
I'm not sure. Maybe that if we saw this through together, if we finally stopped Nazir once and for all, then you'd be a real hero. And that fact would somehow make everything you did before not matter. And it would all just be about getting to there.
Including what I did to you.
Including that. It just wouldn't matter anymore. To either of us.
You know how crazy everyone says you are? You're crazier than that.
This deal of ours. I think it's a way out for both of us. You said you were all alone. You're not.
How far does it take down, team?
5 minutes.
Don't do it.
ST's told us to shut this down.
It is premature.
Or maybe we should have done this weeks ago.
There is a fucking attack coming. And Brody is our only entry point to Roya and the cell.
Why did you tell us where to find him if you were gonna pull this shit?
You have got to give Carrie a chance. She's turning it around.
Turning it around? Is that what you think is going on there, really? Turning it around? Really?
Turn it off.
No, tell me, really, I'd like your expert opinion. Is that somebody turning something around, or is that a stage 5 delusional getting laid?
I am telling you, she can fix this. She didn't run off to Mexico. She went to a safe harbor site. She knew I could find her. All she's asking for is time. Give her some.
Till the takedown, we wait.
Copy that.
I'm good.
What'd you think? I'd be curious to know what the cards looked like for that scene. Did you write?
No nudity, some sexual content.
Yeah. I mean, what's it like to be in the room with these actors when they're working? I'm assuming that you're in some close proximity. Have you learned anything about your own writing or about writing by watching them work? Not so much in this scene necessarily, but you know what I get. I mean, you learn to write, I think, by watching and seeing what works and doesn't work.
Yeah. By the time it gets to script, honestly, it usually works. Like if the actors are gonna have problems with it or think it doesn't work for them, they've told us. Part of I guess, a virtue of shooting in Charlotte is that there are very few distractions to the actors. I think they would do it anyway. Claire is like very serious about her craft. You know, they put in so much time. They really like. It's not just knowing your lines. They've really put deep thought into these scenes before they do them.
Do they live in Charlotte for like an extended period of time? And
well, like the whole time.
Which is like 6 months, or?
We start shooting around June 1, or wrapped by about the end of October.
How's the town embraced the show, or
I don't think they knew we were there for the longest time because they don't actually have a film industry there, or didn't. You know, I think now they had Hunger Games shot there, and we're shooting there, and there's a TV show with a name like Banshee or something that's shooting there. So they have more stuff. But when we went there, if you knocked on somebody's door and asked if they could be a location, they would have no idea what you were talking about. If it were a part of a corporate chain, they would have no way of figuring out if they could even do it. You know, we'd be on a 1-week prep schedule, and it would take them 3 weeks to get an answer.
Presumably, someone chose North Carolina or Charlotte because it was inexpensive, or
it's tax credits.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Great. You could come shoot it in Traverse City.
It'd be nice.
Yeah.
It doesn't look that much like Washington, D.C., but especially right now.
I know, before we go to questions, I want to hear a few interesting stories. You were in Israel filming, and you know, this show seems so real at one level and so fantastical at the other, that, you know, but it straddles both worlds. And you were in Israel, and someone mistook this for reality, right? Or
well, we had a couple issues. One, the first one I wasn't there for, but the shooting the pilot in Israel. If you saw the pilot, you know that segment at the beginning that's where she's going along the street. I don't even remember where it supposedly is. It's not supposedly in Israel, but it was. It was in Barta actually, which is the green line goes right. The green line goes right through it, so it's a divided thing, part Israeli, part occupied, and we were shooting really just like a block into the occupied territories, and partway through the morning, these fights started breaking out, and they were kind of like beaten down by security people, and then they got bigger and bigger. Finally, a full-blown riot breaks out. It was like in national news there and stuff. Big riot breaks out. Claire's popped into a car, and her Mossad agent takes her away. It turns out
a real Mossad agent.
Yeah, a real Mossad agent.
Yeah.
It turns out that the location people had not really gotten money to the right people. So the shop owners along the street who had gotten up at 4 in the morning, crossed through all these checkpoints to get to their stores, found this film crew there that were shutting them down, and they were furious, and nobody would talk to them. So anyway, they did take all of our equipment hostage, and it had to be bailed out. As a footnote to that, actually, on the way in, everybody had been told to just say you're going on a location scout, so nobody would know there would be actors there, so there wouldn't be any threat of them being captured. So on the way out, the DP said we were just on a location scout. In the meantime, there had been national news of this riot, so the guy knew he was lying to him, so our DP and some other people were yanked into padded rooms for a few hours and missed their flights and stuff on the way out. That was in the pilot. The first 2 episodes of the second season we went over, and I was there for that. We'd set up a demonstration outside of what's supposedly the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. It was actually in Tel Aviv at just about the most famous building in Tel Aviv. It's just like, it was the original city hall, now it's some kind of art museum. It's on this little cul-de-sac that's like named after the poet laureate of Israel, whose name, do you know? I don't know who it is, somebody. But we had a demonstration with burning flags and stuff, and some guy who had just gotten out of the Israeli army came, saw this. For some reason, even though it was like being patrolled by Lebanese police and stuff in the middle of Tel Aviv, thought it was real.
Imaginary Lebanese.
Yeah, so it was just actors and like lots of cameras and stuff. He just thought it was real. He came and started just beating up our extras. So we haven't had good luck there in a way.
No. It's tough duty.
Yeah.
Listen, let's raise the house lights. I'm sure you have lots of questions.
That'd be great.
Chip is really eager to answer them. We have microphones that rove. If you could just stand and say your first name.
Hi, my name's Danielle. I recently heard that Marina Baccarin has been confirmed as a series regular for season 3, and that Diego Klattenhoff, who plays Mike, has not been confirmed as a regular. And I'm just wondering what you can offer in terms of who will be returning as regulars for season 3 and who we might not be seeing as much of. And will Damian Lewis be back?
Tell us who Marina is.
Marina is Mrs. Brody. Where did you read that? A couple of weeks ago, it was just pure conjecture. There's, because I've only been out of the room for 1 day, I was wondering if, without me, suddenly this log jam, parted and they figured it all out. I think that still sounds correct, kind of, but I don't know. There was no, I got to tell you, there was no plan for season 3 as of 3 weeks ago.
Say that again. So,
it's in terms of the actors?
Mm-hmm. Oh, or how about story?
Do we have a story?
For season 3.
Well, sort of. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll
No,
have to see.
I think this is so refreshing, so wonderful, that here is someone so successful creating something so compelling, and you're telling it like it is. I mean, this is the way it is. You start with nothing, but that doesn't mean you won't have something.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a sense of what season 3 could be and what they're, and even on 24, believe it or not, the first question you ask is, what is Jack Bauer's emotional arc? I know he seemed not to have one, but that would be like we'd spend 2 months thinking about that. So we're still at that stage a little bit, but we have I think we have a kind of cool thing for the first maybe half of the season, and then it gets a little spottier.
I know there's some more.
Hi.
Chip, I just wondered, any reaction to the show from our Defense Department, the CIA, or Homeland Security?
Well, yeah, the military does not like us because they don't like the idea of a Marine going over and being turned. So we were used to, a few of us were used to 24, where you could call up the Navy and they would deliver you 6 helicopter gunships tomorrow if you needed it, and there's nothing like that going on. I guess that's it.
All right, next question. Wherever there's a microphone, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
What's the typical length to shoot a particular show? Weeks, days?
Well, we have, TV, you have what you call a pattern budget, which means that you're budgeted for a certain number of days. Typically, inside of that, it means a certain number of days in, meaning on your sound stages, and a certain number of days out, meaning on location. We were budgeted for 8 days and we were not making it, in part because that's a network budget for 8 days, and Showtime expects us to produce at least 5 more minutes of material. So we need another day just to do that, so that kind of got us up to 9. And then we sometimes can't even do that, so we sometimes creep up to 10, but that people start to get kind of mad then.
So you would shoot an episode at 9 or 10 days?
That was shot in 8 or 9 days.
Wow.
Those were both.
Why does it take
Those
so long?
were both shot in 9.
And is it bad form to ask, or just comparatively, like if this were a movie, the budget would be $40 million. I'm assuming that for a television show it's much, much smaller, yet the quality seems to be...
It looks great.
Yeah,
right?
it looks great.
Great.
It's just one of those mysteries of the new art form.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is we amortize sets and stuff, obviously. You have standing sets like our CAA thing pays for itself at some point, and then it's not really adding to the costs. We do a lot less takes. We just have to keep moving. A setup, a key setup in a movie, they might do 16 takes. If it's big actor things, in a way like these were, we do 2, 3, and move on.
Listen, I know you asked the one question you've been dying to ask for the past 24 episodes. There's lots of... Oh, there's Jack. Okay.
Jack. The young actress who plays Brody's daughter, I think she's fantastic, and particularly the scene where they're doing the TV interview on the couch, and she comes through with the perfect response. But wondering if you are writing lines for her, or you're just telling her you're a 16-year-old girl, do it, be yourself.
Oh, this is great, yeah.
I'm glad that was a scene I wrote, so I'm happy to hear. How good was it? It was like really good. We had, her name's Morgan Schuyler, right? Mm-hmm. She's fantastic. She's a real actress. She's the real thing. She's just been great, and we've all written for her. I think I have especially because I have a daughter about that exact same age. I was telling Doug actually, we have this like fetish for realism in this show, and we realized that there was like one area where we were not honoring that at all. It was with that character, and I think it's because I have a daughter who's going off to college next year. Alex Gons has a son who went off this year. He's actually on a gap year, but same thing. Alex Carey had a son who's going off to college next year. We were losing these kids, and they don't talk to us. So we like kind of took advantage of her to like have her say things. So like she'd come down the hall and go, "Hey Dad, are you okay in there? I really love you a lot," So there was this like phoniness that crept in, and we were powerless to do anything about it because it just sounded so good.
That's funny. Yes.
Hi, my name's Kimberly. In 2000, you shot a pilot for a show called Ultraviolet.
Yeah,
and I was wondering, with growing popularity with vampires and werewolves and zombies, if that pilot would ever come to fruition for viewers.
It's funny, that thing, that was the hot script that year, and it got made into a pilot that was kind of okay, and it did not go to air. That was pre-vampire craze, and you had to beg actors to go onto this thing. It was a kind of, is the question whether, it's dead. Like, actually dead.
Well,
it's not undead, it's like...
What do you do with,
It's dead. Yeah.
Not undead.
I had a thing, I did that with Howard Gordon, actually, who created Homeland with Alex Gonza. And I had this idea that we should cast it like an indie film, too, with like, that was partially after you couldn't get actors to do it, but I thought, let's do it like an indie film with people like nobody's ever heard of. And this was not a great idea, as it turned out, because the focus groups that depend on, they depend on so much, just were a little confused, I think, by the whole thing. That's like my rock band to me, that thing, actually. It's like, it was just a sad thing that could, I swear to God, that thing would have gone 8 or 10 seasons. It was like a great premise for a...
Have you seen it?
I have not.
Oh.
I actually hung on to the master tapes of that thing until about 3 years ago, and then finally just went, like, burn them or something.
Wow. Okay. Over here, yes.
Thanks for coming to, hello to Traverse City, first of all. A couple of cast questions. Number one, do they all have to audition? Does Mandy Patinkin and Claire Danes, they have to audition? And how did they get those roles? And then the guy who plays Brody had a British accent at the Golden Globes. Is he a Brit? And if
He's a
so,
Brit.
why did they, I mean, it must be a challenge for him to pull off the accent week after week. Why did he get the role? You know,
Like, why didn't you get the role, or me, or like? He's. They're all kind of different questions. They're a little bit different. Like, we have a few British actors. They're just taking over American TV. I don't know why.
We have to stop this immediately. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, I first personally worked, if this is a little detour to the question, but I first worked with British actors when I was doing something in Rome for a year for ABC. They do have a different approach to things. They're much, you know, more technical. They really know their lines, which not all Americans do, frankly. And they're kind of easy to work with that way. So I don't know if that's part of it or if it just makes them better actors or better to nail auditions or something.
Quinn is British.
Quinn is also British. So the guy who was talking with Mandy here, people like Mandy Patinkin and Claire Danes and Damian Lewis, you make offers to and hope they'll say yes, basically, you know. Damian, because Claire, I think, nobody is a no-brainer. There are so many people who have to agree on who's going to work. My sense of like female leads, honestly, is the first thing they do is go like, let's get Halle Berry. And then that plays out, and then they, but they, it looks like a role that was created for Claire, so it's one of these things you just can't imagine anybody else doing it at this point. Like things like if you saw the first season, that thing with the electroconvulsive therapy at the end, that would have been ridiculous with anybody else practically. You know, you really need an amazing actress to pull that off and not make it seem silly, and she's able to do this stuff. Damian had a movie called Keen that, if you're interested in Damian, is well worth watching. It's about a father who has lost his daughter at a bus station, and we're not quite sure how crazy he is and stuff. And because nobody knew that he could do it, everybody thought he was Band of Brothers Damian. He's kind of a goofball, actually. He's nothing like that. He's just live wire, kind of very clever talker. He's like a delight. But you think of him as being the serious guy from Band of Brothers. So I think there were issues with that, and Keen was the thing for him. Mandy, you know, I guess this is speaking frankly. Mandy, the question was, is he going to walk off your show the way he did off the last one? And
what was the last one?
I think Criminal Minds. And when you see his explanation of it, which is like he was tired of seeing women tortured and raped every week, he didn't think that was going to be his job, you just go, good for you, you know? So, and he's such a complete delight, Mandy is. So, those are kind of more the issues, I guess.
Yes, right there.
Yeah. Excuse me. Thank you. First, a comment. One is I hope we see some more character development about Saul, because quite frankly, I'm not sure that I completely trust Saul. It seems like there's something going on with him that we haven't seen.
I agree with you.
Well, tell me more about that before you go on, though. Like, what is the
I don't know. Just the way Saul acts, the way the interaction between him and his wife. It seems like there's a backstory to Saul that there's something to pull out of that yet. I find him a fascinating character. Two questions, actually. One was, when you started this, did you have a length for the show and an endpoint in mind? Some series go on and they kind of write until, you know, nobody's watching anymore. Some people have, for example, Breaking Bad. You know, it was a 5-year project. You know, this is it. This is the endpoint. So that's question one. And two, I have kind of mixed feelings at the end of season 2, and I'd love to know what you wanted to do at the end of season 2.
Well, for the first one, Alex Gons and Howard Gordon wrote the pilot, and I know for a fact that there was a rough endpoint for the first season, but there was not any sense of where it goes as a series. And I think quite honestly, it's not wrong to say we're trying to figure that out now. It's become such a thing about these two people in a way that nobody quite expected that we're wrestling with that. The season 2 ending we had planned was going to be a much more traumatic examination of that relationship, and they asked us not to do it. Is that they hated it so much. They said, "We will pick this up tomorrow if you say you won't do it."
I'm curious what brainstorm or plot twist you're proudest of, why, and how it came about.
Well, you know, there are certain things where, this is a little, maybe just a little bit of a tangent to that, but there are certain things where you just are delighted that you made a good decision when you didn't quite know where you were going. And then these are both little things, but a couple examples are, at the end of season 1, we'd laid in this thing really not knowing, we just knew we had to do something by the end of episode 3 that implied we knew what was going on, and we had no idea. So we did this thing with this terrorist couple moving into a house by a runway, because we thought, that will, you can make of that what you want. And it was somehow in line of sight to the presidential and vice presidential helicopter, Marine 1 and Marine 2. We did not connect that. Alex Carey actually made the connection that when we were writing episode 12, that Marine 1 and Marine 2 aren't the helicopters, they are Brody and Walker, Marine 1 and Marine 2, two actual Marines on the ground. So that was like not an invented plot twist, but one that was kind of came back to us. And it's one of those things where you just go, wow, we made kind of an interesting choice there. There was another one that I kind of saw in that we could use the suicide tape from season 1, to explain what happens at the end of season 2. And that kind of thing just kind of delights you, because it's like a little choice you made that comes back as if you'd had it planned, when in fact, we did not.
That's great. We're learning that a lot. I mean, it's refreshing. It's great. A couple more, and then I think we'll wrap up. Anyone else? Who's right there in the back?
With individual writers writing individual episodes, how do you make sure that you maintain consistent voice for the characters across episodes?
We do a different, because like everybody has run shows before, we really have a different process. That is, people, this isn't 100% true, but basically people don't get rewritten. Scripts are not taken away from people and rewritten by other people.
Interesting.
I should preface that my question will have some sexual content, but no nudity. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay, so when I'm watching Homeland, there are some times that I go, what the F? Holy F! Do you have writers that will say, or a particular writer that says, we have way too many what the F moments going on in this particular segment. Our viewers' minds are just going to explode, because there are times that I feel like my heart is going to explode, and I'm almost mad that I have to wait a week. So I sometimes wait and watch it on DirecTV or on demand, so that I can watch 2 in a row, so that I don't have those I need an Ativan moments. No nudity. And I don't actually say F, I say the real word.
That's all good, sounds like. We do, I guess, honestly, we do have, we do worry a little about things being a little too crazy sometimes, if it fits the aesthetic of the show. And it's just something you have to, you can only go with your own sense of that, right? Because if you go out on the internet and go, what are people saying? You just see everything, you know. So there's no way to do a poll or something. Like I heard what you just said. I'm not quite sure what it meant, honestly. But like it was sort of good and bad, it sounded like. But yeah, we do worry a little. I gotta say honestly, we do worry a little bit about that. And then when we slow it down, we don't like that either. We like, because everything feels like it has to be torqued up a little bit. Even if it's a family scene, it can't just be a family scene. It has to be related to the terrorist thing. You know, it's like the one time we slowed it down a little bit purposely, I think, was at the end of season 2, at the beginning of the season finale, so that we just put them in this limbo space, Brody and Carrie, and it was oddly just sort of normal, you know, it was like normal. And the idea was to just lull people into going, is this really where they're ending, like in this place? And then we got nervous with that, and we had a gun pointing at them, you know, because we get nervous if there's not a lot of stuff going on.
Anybody with some question they wished I'd asked? Go ahead. We'll take two more.
There's one up there.
Okay, we won't forget you up there too. Go ahead.
As a creative person, writer, you have to focus on what you're doing when you're doing it. But other things pop to your mind, I'm sure. How do you deal with all those other intrusive projects that just suddenly look so interesting? And what do you do with them? How do you get to them or leave them alone? And in the course of following where you have to go, do you ever really contemplate leaving that single focused thing and go off and do tangent project 1 or 2?
The single focus thing, meaning writing for one TV series, do you mean? Or
A series, and the series has to continue, and you're just so driven by episode by episode, you can't deviate and spend time. But you got all these other creative things that come across you.
Well, you know, actually, after the thing that I did in Rome for ABC, I thought, if I can't have fun writing TV in Rome, I got to do something else. So it's kind of a midlife crisis. I didn't go to law school when I was young. I actually went as kind of in midlife. And I just said, I'm never going back to TV ever. And then the effect of that for me was that after a couple of years, I went to a year and a half of law school, and then somebody gave me a bunch of dough to do a pilot. So I said, okay, I'll do that, because I didn't really have a plan about how to stop doing TV. And I found that just by taking some time off from it, like the creative desert I was feeling had gone away, and that I had some interest in doing the work again. I don't personally have so much trouble staying focused on what I'm doing. I find it like hard for us like now in the writer's room, because we just have this huge blank slate. But the actual like writing by yourself in a room, by that point things are pitched out and you kind of know what you're doing, and that's why it's so joyful, because it isn't this huge blank page. That said, I find the internet thing just like, it's not like, you know, the chocolate cake in the refrigerator or something. It's like the internet thing, that there's just too many, that is a problem for me anyway. You know, so I wish I could make that go away, but I don't know how you do it, because you're on a computer. But
are you researching or just Googling?
Well, no, you just check your email, all the junk you do, you know, like that is just sort of wasting time if you're trying to get something done. Or to me, it seems that way.
One last question. How about up in the balcony? Has anyone been standing there?
A little off subject. I want to talk about Dexter, if I may.
Yeah.
I thought it was brilliant. I mean, a serial killer killing a serial killer. How did that come about?
Okay, a serial killer killing is this a recent episode? Because I kind of stopped watching it. I need a little more help with the question, actually.
Where are you, sir? I can't.
The entire series. How did the series?
Oh, the guy. You know, I got to say that was. I came on after doing 24, so I came on in season 5 to run it. So it was based on some books. You know, Darkly Dreaming Dexter and these things. The pilot was written by a guy named James Manos, who is, for TV writers, he's a real writer. He's a really cool guy. Because of that, he was quickly booted off the project, and it was turned over to some more TV types. Although there was a guy named Daniel Cerrone there in the early years too, kind of became the voice of Dexter, I think, and was also eventually booted off. I say that, making them the good guys, because I also was booted off at my turn. So I like to think I was with the good guys. But so that was based on a book, anyway.
The last question right here in the red. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura. I have a question. Earlier you said about the Emmys, you were a little surprised. And how do you, I'm serious, how do you know if a TV show is doing well? I mean, Showtime, there's not commercials. People DVR the programs and watch them later. Do they still do ratings? I mean, how do you know that they do?
We get, I don't know quite what they are anymore, quite honestly. Like we get, the number is it includes so many different things. I don't know how to compare it to things from 2 years ago, say. But we get a number of viewers for Homeland. And they, of course, do ratings for broadcast TV and stuff, just as they always have. Is that what you mean? Yeah. Can I tell you the difference, though? When we were starting this is like, and you can't imagine how much of a relief it is to hear this when, in a broadcast situation, you might be canceled after 2 episodes or 3 episodes. Showtime said to us, in failure, you will go 3 seasons. That is, they were going to give us 3 seasons to see if this thing worked. And that's like such an amazing gift to get from David Nevins.
Wow. Well, listen, thank you for your gift of being here. It's been really, really fascinating.
It's been a pleasure to get back to Michigan.
Thank you. We'll be out in the lobby if you'd like to say hi to Chip after the show. Thank you again.